Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to hop into part 3 of this 6-part series where we're going over the 5 classes of the Diablo IV beta, and then we're also going to build a tier list at the end. If you haven't seen the previous episodes, we have covered Barbarian and Druid so far, so make sure to check out my channel for those videos. For today's episode, we'll be talking about the Rogue. The Rogue is crazy. The mobility is insane. I think it has the best mobility in the game. Can get moving really fast, a lot of really reliable AoE and single target damage depending on how you spec. What's really cool about the Rogue is that it offers us both melee and ranged options. You can build kind of however you'd like. If you want to be further away, you can do that. If you want to be closer, if you want to be some kind of hybrid, you can do it all. Really cool, versatile class, and I had a lot of fun playing it. So let's go ahead and dive into my Rogue. So like most people in the beta, I've been playing the Twisting Blades build. I was able to get this amulet, and it has been working out really well. If you're not too familiar with it, the concept is to use Shadow Imbuement. This is going to make us do more damage to a target. When that target dies, it's also going to explode and deal massive amounts of damage to everything around it. This has a 9-second cooldown, but we have ways to reduce this in our build. It's going to apply for the first 2 hits that we use once we pop this off. We're then going to hit him with Twisting Blades a few times, and then typically we're going to dash or shadow step through the pack of enemies, and then the Twisting Blades are going to pull back to us at the very end and destroy everything in their path. With the affix on this amulet, when those blades come back to you, they also kind of orbit you for a while and start to wreck everything that's around you. The one downside that I have noticed to this build is when you're dealing with kind of a wider pack, it can be a little bit difficult because once you use those 2 attacks of Twisting Blades, you dash through, you're kind of only hitting everything that's in the center or off to the side. Sometimes if the pack is wide enough, you can't really clear it all out too well, but this build really does require a lot of precision. More specifically, when you've used your Twisting Blades attack and you're dashing or even shadow stepping to move around, the direction that you go is so important, and at times it has to be incredibly precise, and with how quickly the Rogue moves and attacks, it can be really difficult to click exactly where you need to when you're doing that dash or that shadow step so that your daggers come back and do as much damage as possible, hitting as most targets as possible. If I'm being completely honest, I didn't spend too much time playing my Rogue. I've even got a weapon here that has a socket with nothing in it. I've been a little bit casual with this class, but have found that despite not having perfect gear, not really upgrading it all that much, it still does perform really well. If you're interested in playing this build when Diablo IV launches, I'm just using the Maxroll version of this, and so I'll go ahead and leave a link down below in the description that'll at least get you the guide for the first 25 points. However, I am assuming that once the game launches, Maxroll will probably create a full leveling guide for this build, so make sure to look out for that. So the first thing that I really want to look at with the Rogue is the Imbuements. This is when your Rogue really starts to shine. Prior to this, you can often feel kind of starved for energy or like you're just running out of resources before you can take out a whole pack, and once you get here, it kind of seems like your problems are just solved. Between the 3 imbuement choices, we have Cold, Poison, and Shadow. I'll be completely honest, I haven't even tried Cold. I don't see many people trying to do anything with Cold. Poison is supposed to be very good against bosses, and Shadow is what most people are taking for this Twisting Blades build because it really gives you a massive AoE coverage and pretty substantial damage. Where this build starts to get really crazy is when we get up to consuming shadows. Each time we kill an enemy with shadow damage, we generate 30 energy. And so the point is, we're going to use this Shadow Imbuement, we're going to hit a few enemies with Twisting Blades, and we're going to dash through a pack. Those blades are going to come back and cause a bunch of explosions to go off, which are all shadow damage, which is going to completely replenish your energy. If you're playing this build correctly, you really shouldn't have too many energy problems. On top of that, we're also taking Inner Sight, which is going to occasionally allow us to get unlimited energy. I've definitely had stretches of gameplay where I can go for quite a while without having any issues with energy at all. Granted, sometimes I make a few mistakes, I mess things up, and once you do that, you definitely slow down a little bit until you can get back on your feet. And so if you're a casual player or not a high APM gamer, this may not be the build for you. In all honesty, I don't really think that I'm good enough to justify myself to play this build. I really don't think that my APM is high enough or my precision is high enough, but if you're a really competitive gamer, this is the build for you. On a side note, Blizzard has been posting a lot of responses on the forums to people kind of giving feedback on the beta, and one of the posts that they had replied to was kind of about the rogue being a more difficult to play class, and Blizzard responded in a sense where they were kind of implying that they didn't want any class to be harder than any other class. They want anybody to kind of hop in and be able to play any build. I think that's nice in theory, but it really doesn't apply here. And so, as much as that is their intent, this is definitely a hard build to really play optimally. Another skill that I want to talk about is dash. In the prior video, we went over the Barbarian. We looked at leap and charge, which were both, I believe, 17-second cooldowns, and dash has 2 charges, 9-second cooldown, and does pretty solid damage. It's completely outclassing the Barbarian as far as mobility goes. Beyond dash, we also have Shadow Step, and it's a little hard to figure out how to optimally use Shadow Step, but there have been a few times where I've pulled it off, got my daggers to come back at the exact perfect place just by positioning myself behind an enemy with Shadow Step. But generally speaking, it's a little difficult, but it's another mobility skill on top of 2 charges of dash. And with regards to ultimate, Shadow Clone is a contender for the absolute best in the game. Mimics your skills, deals naturally, I believe it's 60% of your damage, but you can get a modifier to bring it up to 80%. This also gives you unstoppable to break crowd controls. One thing that I found that was really cool about the Shadow Clone was actually pairing him with traps. Prior to the Twisting Blades build, I was playing a Caltrops Poison Trap build with the Shadow Clone that was actually a lot of fun. It definitely wasn't as optimal. Maybe later in the game it might be good enough, but the Shadow Clone also lays down your traps, and it feels huge to be able to double your rate at dropping down traps. Although it was slower, I will say that I felt like I had more fun playing that build, mostly because I'm probably not playing Twisting Blades absolutely perfectly, but it was also nice just to kind of do my own thing and to find that great synergy between the Shadow Clone and the traps. While I was playing the traps build, I was kind of switching back and forth between the barrage and the rapid fire. Ended up settling on rapid fire because with the Caltrops, we're kind of slowing enemies, and the intent is to keep them inside of those poison traps. And so I didn't really want to be up in the action, kind of wanted to stand back since I had the slowing effect from the Caltrops. If you're not able to get the Twisting Blades affix when you start your rogue in Diablo 4, I would definitely recommend kind of giving a rapid fire poison trap Caltrops build a shot, and especially when you get to that Shadow Clone, it does work out pretty well. Not sure how that'll scale into the late game. I'm not sure if there's really enough legendary support for it, but it's definitely a good way to get you started. So another nice thing about rogues, whether in a group or solo setting, once you get a single enemy punctured, if you're playing a flurry build, you can also make all other enemies vulnerable in the area just by using a flurry. If this is in any way similar to the Diablo 3 endgame where we are going to have support classes running in group metas, I would venture to say that Rogue would probably be a contender, at least based on what we can see so far, for the best support class. Well guys, that's just about all that I have to say about the Rogue. It was a really fun experience, definitely a very high skill ceiling, so bear in mind if you're going to pick this class, you'll probably perform pretty well regardless of how good you are, but if you really want to take advantage of the full potential of this class, you're going to have to play pretty precisely. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and dive into the Necromancer, but thank you guys so much for watching this one, and I'll see you on the next one.